Welcome to part 2 of working on the No Name Nationals Firebird. That's kind of a long name, so I've decided I'm just going to go ahead and name this car. It's red. It's a Firebird. We'll just call it Scarlet. That'll be a whole lot easier. So this week in the evenings, I'm focusing on getting their engine ready to go in. Here it is over here. So I need to get the motor mounts on here. I need to slot the torque converter bolt holes on the back of the flywheel. I'm using a 700R4, so it's off a little bit. Instead of changing flywheel, I'm just going to slot it. And I am using some ICT billet alternator and power steering pump bracket kits. In order to use the alternator bracket kit, you need a hole right here, which there isn't one. So what I'm doing right now is using this to drill and tap. Sadly, I can't find my cutting oil. And Home Depot near me doesn't appear to sell it. So I guess I'll be using WD-40 for that. Wish me luck. First we're going to bolt the template on here. This will make sure I put the hole in the right place. I'm going to use a 1/4-inch drill first as a pilot. And then step up to this 11/32 so that I can tap it. This is a metric 10 by 1.5. Yes, I know this is the wrong oil. It's better than nothing. This is going to be a while, looks like. Slow and steady wins the race, I guess. And I wish I had some cutting oil. I'll get back to you when I've made some more progress. Moving on to the next bit. You know, funny thing, the hole's already drilled and tapped on aluminum blocks. It's just the cast iron blocks where it's not. You know, the more difficult one to actually drill and tap. Battery's dead. Good thing my impact uses the same battery. This drill bit's a lot sharper than the other one. Here goes nothing. Here's the real test right here. That's pretty deep. Hopefully it's deep enough. Guess we'll find out when I actually put the alternator on. Time to put our motor mount adapter plates on. Again, like most of the stuff I'm using on this, for this swap, it's ICT billet. ICT billet. It came from Walter Racecraft. WalterRacecraftRacing.com? Walter Racecraft? Yeah. It's in the description. We need 4 of these. 4 of these. These are marked driver, passenger. This is the driver's side, so we'll put this one on right here. I suck. Let's try this again. Got a bolt in here for some reason. Must have been holding something on. Now it's in the way. But whatever that is, I hope we don't need it. Because there's no sticking a bolt in there anymore. This plate works with the older style mounts and the newer style clamshell type mounts. So if you've got like the, your standard 64 to 72 Chevelle mount, this will also work. But this is the clamshell. According to ICT billet, what we want to use are the furthermost holes. You see it's got a, well, I guess I should have showed you the plate a little bit better, huh? Here's the one for the other side. You see it has all sorts of different bolt holes you can use. And so depending on where you put the mount, it moves the engine backwards and forwards. If you are using the original transmission, which I am, you want to put it in the furthest forward. This is the passenger side, so furthest forward bolt hole. If you're doing something custom, well then use the other ones. But I'm not trying to do anything custom. I'm just trying to get this in and going. That's all I'm up to. See if I can put these bolts in without it flying off and going across the garage floor. More importantly, why am I not using an impact or at least a battery operated ratchet? It's not sitting flush. With all the LS's out there and all the clamshell mounts, they probably would have tried a million different applications of this thing. That bolt is hitting the block. Let me just go ahead and check the directions again. Yep, I've got it right. It's just hitting the block. We might need some washers. You see that gap there? That's caused by this right here. It's hitting the back of the motor mount. That should be obvious. I mean, when they made these things, that should be something that they should note. I think I'm going to cut this out here so this fits flush. I think that's enough that would make it a pain in the ass to get this bolt in, because that does widen the gap from here to here just enough that I'll be screwing with that bolt on my back for hours to try and get that damn thing in. So I think it's probably easier now to go ahead and grind this down and get this to fit flush the way it's supposed to. Okay, that's a lot better. See, that gap is gone. What I did was I just put two slices in the mount and made kind of a tab and bent it back. And that took care of that. New day, new thing I'm working on. Got to get the valley plate off of here and put this on it. This is going to be much better when I put it in this car to use this instead of a chain. Need to get rid of the knock sensors anyway. Just pop these out of here. Probably super gross. That's one. There's the harness. Now we can take that plate off. Just got to get the sensors out first. That first bolt was already loose. A little bit of nasty stuff in there. Now we just put our lift plate in place. Okay, I got the plate on, and I think this engine is ready to be installed. I'm not sure I'm ready with the car yet, but I think the engine's good. Take a look at this wiring mess. This is a bunch of stuff that goes to the old OBD system. And here, the OBD1. Looks like this is the bulk of it right here. This giant wiring mess. So I'm going to try and pull this out of here. I am not going to cut it yet because I know the moment I cut it, I will need it. Here's our new engine wiring harness over here. So that's as big as a wiring nightmare as that. It'd be nice to only have one in the car instead of two. Got to cut these wires. They head back towards the transmission. I'm sure it's what controls that the lockup for the 700R4. Which reminds me, I need to figure out what I'm going to do about that. So, you know, I said that old engine had probably been taken apart, had the injectors replaced, and then never put back together. Oh, look what I found here when I was taking the air cleaner out. Here's an original injector, and here's a TPI gasket. Looks like I might be on to something. Here's the old fuel injection wiring harness. I also cleared this spot out over here, and I think what I'm going to do here is I think this is where the computer is going to be for now, because this harness is probably the best way to get into the passenger compartment. This firewall is just packed with stuff, and the other side is packed. But in order to get this out and feed the new one through here to get to the computer, which is just the old computer. It's a little dark in here, but anyways, the old computer is sitting right there. You can kind of see the wiring harness, but yeah. So in order to take this out, looks like this fender has to come out, or at the very least, you have to take the wheel well out, because this, you can see it goes into the fender. It looks like a real pain in the ass to me. I think the computer's going to go right here for now, because I'm trying to get to the No Name Nationals, not spend days, hours taking a fender off, fishing wire through or around the firewall, however they've done it, through the door jamb. I don't know what they've done. Yeah, right here. Looks good to me. Well, it's Friday night when everybody else is out partying. I'm here working on the engine. I know I said I was going to slot the old flywheel or flex plate, But I ended up buying a new one earlier this week. I was doing some research on it. Decided for 75 bucks, I would just get a new flex plate. I don't want to be wrong and have to take the engine back out. Gotta get this off the stand, get this old flywheel off of here, put the new one on, then put this little ICT adapter on here. This is to basically mate the old torque converter to a LS engine. She's leaning a little bit, but it's all right. Man, it's another case of the engine hoist and the engine stand not playing well with each other. What are you gonna do? I don't know why I expected it just to fall off. I do want to solve the mystery of what's different between the two. I realize it's not a mystery to some of you, but I found way too much conflicting information. Saw a video where a guy was using the old flywheel from the small block Chevy and was slotting these mounting holes. I was pretty sure it was these holes that were supposed to be slotted, but I don't know, I could be wrong, and that's why I decided to just buy a flywheel. I have figured it out. It was what I thought it was originally. You're supposed to slot these 3 holes this way, probably about 1/4 of an inch, would be my guess. This flywheel has an extra set of holes, which I've attempted to line up there, and as you can see, it's off by about 1/4 of an inch. If I twist it this way, those holes line up. These are the holes you would use for like a 4L60 or 4L80. These holes here are the ones we're going to use because this is what you would use for a 700 R4 or a Turbo 350 or a Turbo 400. I'll put this part in the description in case you don't feel like slotting your flex plate. I'm going to save this one though. What I really should do is use this as a template to slot this one. Then I'll always have one kicking around. But I won't, because I won't. Let me get back to this. You're holding me up. Extra hole makes it kind of obvious. Bolt pattern. I'm sure there's a torque spec. I'm going to look that up and torque it. Okay, I just torqued them to 40. The spec is 75, so I didn't want to go all the way to 75 on the first pass. Probably not supposed to anyway. Yes, I'm locking it in place with a bolt. I didn't look to see if there was a pattern for tightening this, but I'm going to use the standard star pattern. Seems to always work for anything that's in a circle. And finally, you. Here's the piece we can't forget. Gotta have this. This ought to do the trick. Alright, we're seated. I think it's ready to go in. There's the crazy angle that we're going in at. Yeah. We got 2 floor jacks down there. One is holding the transmission up. And then this other one I'm going to end up using to hold up the, to adjust the oil pan and level this out with the floor jack. Why am I doing this, you say? Well, remember this super long nose on this thing? It's about the only way I'm going to be able to get this in with the engine hoist that I have. Without an extra set of hands, I'm just going to have to make do with some floor jacks. Well, wish me luck. Lost a little bit of footage, but all I did was get the engine over the core support, so you don't really miss anything. Okay, I've got the back of the engine on the floor jack. A little bit more room there with a wiper. Alright, this time I caught the oil pan pretty decently. It's in, sort of. If you take a look, we are, I don't know, about maybe an inch too far forward. The transmission's already connected. So tomorrow morning, I'll be disconnecting the transmission cross member, or at least loosening up the cross, see if I've got any slack on that cross member, on the transmission cross member mount, and see if we can get the transmission to slide back enough to get the oil pan and the motor mounts to set in place. So that's tomorrow's task, because I'm tired. Well, Saturday morning, and sometimes what you need is a good night's sleep. I couldn't figure it out last night. I didn't try that hard, but I couldn't figure it out last night why this wouldn't sit in right. Turns out it has a broken transmission mount, and the transmission actually moved forward. It didn't move back because the drive shaft has now slipped out enough that it's kind of cattywampus. So now I just need to fix that, get the transmission to move back further, and then this engine should go down on the mounts. Yeah, you can see that drive shaft has come out a little bit, and the mount is trash. Been a little bit since I had the camera on, but the engine is officially in. Transmission mount was so bad it had twisted sideways and was pushing the transmission up into the transmission tunnel. Once I gouged that thing out of there, I literally pulled it out in pieces. Once I got that out, then the transmission and the engine slid right back and dropped down into place. I think you can probably see I do have the bolt in the engine mount on both sides. Next up, I think, is some lunch. And then I'm going to put the headers in and probably the starter. So lunch is over, and I also end up mowing the lawn. Then I also made a list of things that need to get done. Torque converter bolts, then we got to get the headers in, and then probably oil and oil filter. Although I haven't seen the oil filter lately. I know I bought one, but I'm not sure where it's at. So I might need to run out and get some oil and oil filter, prime the pump. Then our crank sensor, which means I've got to get out the new wiring harness and start working with that, because after the crank sensor, we'll put the starter and wiring in for that. And the crank sensor is behind the starter. Yeah, there's no point in trying to hold off on the cranks. I got to get that starter in before I actually tighten down the headers. I've got to pick up a trans mount too. O2 sensors, I have those, got to put those in. And then harmonic balancer, and then probably the intake, power steering, alternator, water pump, radiator hoses, fans, PCM, battery, and then maybe we'll start it. No, there's a lot more than that, but that's the beginning of my list. Torque converter bolts are done, and the one transmission bolt that I still need to put in, that's in now. So let's see if this fits. Had to break out the Sawzall again. I had to do a Tyson Holyfield 2 on it. The ear of the transmission needed to be cut off. It unfortunately would not allow me to get the passenger side header on. So, had to trim that transmission. You might be thinking, why on earth would I need to do that? That is because these headers were undoubtedly put together with the thought that I would be using a 4L60 or 4L80. And you can actually look over here. This is a 4L60, and if you look right here by the starter, on that 700R4, it comes out to about here. And so I cut that piece off. I don't think it's really structural. I think that was more there because of the way a small block Chevy is built. The LS engine is a little bit narrower there, so it's not, all that extra meat's not needed. It'll be okay. I won't be able to put a dust shield on, but I don't care. Speaking of dust shields, that's for the starter, and I think I'm finally ready to put this starter on. Of course, I had to get a new starter when I was taking the old starter off this LS to clean it up. Of course, the solenoid bolts snapped. In fact, I don't think I've ever successfully taken off a LS starter. The little solenoid bolt breaks on every single one of them that I've ever touched. So I know I said the starter was up next, but I need to get this plate off and start putting this wiring down. I need to do this because part of the wiring harness goes to the starter, so I need to have the new wiring harness kind of in place. And I just want to get this out of the way, get the new one on. The reason I bought this one is because it came with a gasket and it was cheap. I do want to point out that you just saw me cleaning it, and it may not look all that clean to you, but all the surfaces where the gasket material actually touches is clean, 100%. You can rewind and watch it again if you'd like, but I assure you, it's good. Rest assured, if this has a tightening sequence, it goes something like this. Done. We just clean this off before I cover it, and then no one can see it. Okay. These wires, these are the wires that go down to the starter from the new wiring harness. This is going to be the O2 sensor on the passenger side. So this needs to be over this way. Got a negative we need to hook up. I should probably do this first. Found our starter wiring. And it's got a bunch of junk on it that we don't need anymore. But it does have a ground. So we do need to hook that up, just in case that ground's going to something inside the car that we're going to need. Plus we have this body ground over here. Yeah, it's probably a good place for this too. One nice thing about having spare parts, spare engines, stuff like that, is I can reference them. There's another 5.3 right here. You can see the ground. Yeah, I think the one I'm working with will be fine for that. So I know this looks like a mess. Never done anything with the LS. They're probably going, oh, hell no. But it's really not that bad. Mostly what you need to remember is all these connectors only fit one place. Well, most of them anyway. Now, back to the task at hand, which is feeding these wires. These are the old starter wires that we still need. Feeding these down between the transmission and the headers and everything else. This is our crank sensor, and then our two hot wires that just hook to the starter. They still aren't where I need them, but now I need to go down there and work on it. I think I'm done for the day / night. It's been a long day. Starter's in and wired. Although when I tighten this header up over here, I gotta redo, not take the wiring off, but make sure that all of it is far away from the header. Right now the header's just kind of dangling there. I really don't want it burning up all of those wires. They're all hot, so it wouldn't be good. I think this is where I'm gonna call it for part 2. In part 3, we'll finish putting all of the, we'll put the water pump on and the harmonic balancer, the intake, hook everything up, and probably start it. For now, I'm gonna go up to the house, take a shower. I need to get this conditioner out of my hair. It's 1 part antifreeze and 2 parts transmission fluid. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys down the road.